You feel any word that you say might be used against you or for you, so you have to be very careful with what you say. Now, even if you give too much information out, they could use that against you, so you have to be very careful. So when you have the interview mode turned on, have you been looking for tips to become a better public speaker? And have you been on this journey for quite a while and not found those few tips that you really need, with which if somebody told you about it, you would be able to become a much better public speaker? Now, if these questions have ever crossed your mind, then this video is exactly the one for you. So stick around, because I myself have been on this search for the past 3 years, and it took me a lot of time and a lot of trial and error, but eventually I found a few tips that I've not seen anywhere around on YouTube or in person, which I'm going to share with you right now. So if you guys are interested, go ahead and drop that like, subscribe to the channel, and let's get right into the video right now. Now, without any delays, I'm going to get into the first point. And this has to do very much with having an emotional connection with what you're saying. Because some people, what they do is, they don't think about how they deliver the message, but rather they just focus on putting the message out there, let people hear it and let people perceive it however they like. However, later on you understand that it's not just putting out the message that's important, but also how you put it out, how you deliver the message. Because certain inflections in your tone, certain body language cues, these are the things that resonate with people more than the things that you're saying. And you can get your message across much better sometimes, even if you got these few points in check, even if your message might not be the best. So let's think of it in a different way now. You know all the academic material you have in school. Let's say you're learning about supply and demand, or you're learning about Newton's laws of motion. Why do you think these things don't stick with you as much as maybe a novel would? Because when you read a novel, you have all these characters and you're learning the stories of these characters and you're going through the journey with them. But when it comes to academic literature, a very robotic way of learning it, right? There's no imagination involved, and it's all there on the paper. Whatever's there on the paper, you have to memorize it. And when you have that kind of a mentality towards learning anything, it never really registers. And so similarly, when it comes to speaking, if you don't feel what you're saying, even the person on the other end won't understand what you're saying, because it all starts with your brain. How does your brain perceive what you're saying, what you're thinking, and then how does it put it out there? Because truly, if you don't believe a message, you can tell whether the person believes in it or not. Because just by the way that they say it, you can tell whether they really believe it or they're trying to make fools of us. So think of it like this. When you have an emotional connection with what you're saying, and when you truly believe it, and you show that passion in the way that you speak, then even people understand your message better than if you were just to put out a message which you might not believe in, but you believe that it just needs to be put out there, and without checking the other cues that need to be there so that you can deliver your message perfectly, and so that the other person understands it exactly how you want the other person to understand it. Now, the second thing that most people don't tell you about communication is that instead of putting on this robotic facade in front of people, try to make it more like a conversation, like they're a part of it. Because what happens is, when you see most speeches, especially of the people who haven't impressed you as much, let's even take university and school presentations. You know those people who can really speak well and who can't speak well. Now, what do you find is the common denominator in the people who speak well? Well, it's actually one thing, and that is that they make it more like a conversation. They make it in simple terms so that you understand firstly, and secondly, it's like you're almost a part of it, and they make it more interactive, and they don't make it robotic. That's the main point. They do not make it robotic. So it doesn't feel for a second that they're being fake of any sort, because they're being their natural selves. They're conveying the point, and you're being entertained at the same time, and you're being able to understand what they're saying too. So when all these factors come together, you get the perfect speaker, and that's how you know that a person's really saying the right things. And of course, I know most people do have this problem of having this performing complex when it comes to speaking, and because of this pressure behind them, they sometimes fold, because they feel if I mess up anywhere right here, I'm gonna be screwed. And why this pressure comes is because you treat it almost like an interview. Because think of an interview. Whenever you're in an interview, you feel any word that you say might be used against you or for you. So you have to be very careful with what you say. Now, even if you give too much information out, they could use that against you. So you have to be very careful. So when you have the interview mode turned on, you become rehearsed. And then it's whatever comes to your mind is not what you actually say. What you say is something off a script. And when you read off a script or when you're trying to memorize a script, I'll be honest, people can tell. People can tell when you're not being genuine. So if you're reading scripts, you're gonna get found out. And when you're not genuine with what you say, it's very evident because it's usually not conversational. Because when you know what you're saying, when you're confident with what you're saying, it'll become more conversational. It'll become like we're talking with our friends. Like, you know, when you meet up with your friends, how you talk with each other. It's very chilled and it's like the other person knows you almost. And you build that connection with them in person because you're relaxed. Let's say you spoke to your friends in an interview kind of way. What do you think would happen? People would eventually either lose interest in what you're saying, and number two, they would just tell you that you're fake. Or even if they don't tell you to your face, they will think that. So if you do not want to be that person, and especially in public speeches, you want to be appearing more confident. And the best way to appear more confident is to speak in a conversational tone. So speak as if you're speaking to another friend. I know you've heard this a lot, but it's really simple. Use basic language. Do not use a complicated language because nobody remembers the complicated words you used. Everybody only remembers how did you convey your message. Were you exciting? Did you stand out of the rest of the presenters? Or if it was just a public presentation, then how did you use up their time and how was it effective for them? So once they have all this covered and once you have this conversational tone covered, then you'll see that your public speaking skills will improve by a mile. Now, the third thing that most people don't tell you about conversation is the importance that a powerful pause can have, a well-timed pause can have in a conversation. Because a conversation is really in parts and it has many parts to it which make the conversation either a meaningful one or a useless one. And it has to do with what you say, how you say it, and the pauses that you incorporate and when you incorporate these pauses. Because through research, and many research studies have been conducted on the same thing, but the power of a pause has many different facets to it. Like number one, it really commands the attention of the audience and everybody just stops to listen. Why did he pause? Because suddenly it's a distraction to what's happening throughout the rest of the speech. The second there's a pause, suddenly like, oh wait, why did he pause? Did something happen? And because of that, your attention is immediately diverted to him. Why did he pause? And the second thing is, that is when you start processing. What did he actually say? And your brain automatically starts this processing work as soon as a pause comes into play. Because like I just said, when there's a pause, the brain detects some irregularity in the speech activity. And so when it sees that, your brain is almost like, okay, there's a pause, something is abnormal, I need to react to it. And so I need to understand why there was a pause. And so that's why it starts recollecting the information. So what was being said to you? And that's how you learn better. Because when there's pauses in the conversation itself, it's like the other person can understand what's really happening and they resonate with you way more. And trust me, this reflection period is more important than you like to believe. Because whether people have told you this or not, the times when you focus the best is when these periods of silence comes. Because your brain is in focus mode at that particular time. Because till then it's diverted with this thing, with that thing, and it's not focusing on what is at hand. But the second a pause comes into play in the conversation, it's like your brain switches on and says, okay, focus mode is on now and let's get to work and let's listen back to what he said. And that's when all the information points are collected. That's when you start learning. And so sometimes it's not just about the delivery or even what you say, but sometimes it's about what you don't say. It's about how you can keep silent in a conversation. And this is probably my favorite point and in my opinion, one of the most important points. The more you can incorporate silence into your conversation, the more likely that people are to listen to you and maybe even take some heed to what you're saying. Effectively, if you want to have a good conversation, then all you need to do is ensure that you have some sort of storytelling ability, an ability to really understand and feel what you're saying and believe what you're saying. And the second thing is to engage in more conversation when you're publicly speaking, because the more that you speak like a robot, the more the other person does not understand. So if you want the other person to understand the message that you're trying to put out, then try to be more friendly, try to be more conversational, try to make them understand. So it's not just about what you put out there, but how you put it out there. And the third thing, and probably the most important thing, is about learning not to say anything at some times, because the pause can really be the difference between a good conversation and a bad conversation, or a good speech and a bad speech. So this is not just for public speaking. All these same points can be used even in your regular conversation to improve your conversation skills and also to command the respect of people around you. Because the more that you employ these few techniques and many other techniques out there, you will see that it's not just in your public speaking that you improve, but also in regular conversation with people you meet on a regular basis. And so with that, we come to the end of this video. And if you guys like this as much as I did, then go ahead and drop that like, subscribe to the channel and hit the notifications bell, and go ahead and share this with your friends, your family, anybody who you think really needs to hear this message. And also drop a comment in the comments box about something that you'd like to see me do in a future video, or some thoughts that you had about this video, because like we all know, we're not perfect and everybody has something to improve on, or I might have missed out on something that you guys really feel is important. So please feel free to put that down in the comments box. And with that, I leave you and see you all in the next video. And remember, never stop dreaming. See you all.
Demon, I got eyes in the back of my head, I'm seeing. Take me for granted and you know I'm leaving. I'ma take what's mine with the webs I'm weaving. I could take this crowd from seeing to believing.